You're listening to Radio Primavera Sound, proudly presented by Cupra.
Welcome to Line Noise, and today we have something of a Krautrock special as we speak to Wolfgang Seidel. He's the former drummer in Eruption, which was a group founded by Conrad Schnitzler, formerly of Tangerine Dream, and who was at that point a member of Kluster. And Eruption was once described as a think tank for the then explosive Krautrock scene, and if you can think of anything more exciting than that, I don't know what. Anyway, Wolfgang Seidel is also the author of a new book, Krautrock Eruption, an introduction to German electronic music 1970 to 80, which I thoroughly recommend. So obviously, we spoke about Krautrock, we spoke about its influences today, we spoke about alternative histories, Kraftwerk, capitalism, and much more. Enjoy it, and remember, Line Noise comes to you with the support of Cupra. Thank you so much for being here today, and congratulations on the excellent book. I haven't finished it, but I've been sort of reading around to try to find try to find bits.
Yeah, but I have to confess, I never was so much interested in Krautrock. There are a few records that really stand out, but you can count them with the fingers of your hand. These are, for example, a Tago Mago of Ken. It's still worth listening to. A lot of these records went one ear in, the other out. And is this so astonishing, this lack of interest? I remember when I read David Stubbs' book on Krautrock, Future Days, that it starts with him wondering that while traveling Germany, he hardly finds someone who had ever heard of the groups he believed to be so important.
Well, I was led to believe, for example, that Kraftwerk, massive group all over the world, certainly in the UK, don't have quite such a good reputation in Germany, for example. Is that right?
It's a little bit more complicated because Kraftwerk underwent through big changes over their career. When they started in the beginning under the name Organization, they had a record out in the UK, not in Germany, but this was more jazz rock inspired than what you think from today, what Kraftwerk is. And for some good reason, I think they do not, you cannot buy the first records of them because this would start the discussion. What's this called? And I remember her first TV appearance. They played together with Can, the two top groups, and Kraftwerk started with an introduction, a solo on a do-it-yourself electronic instrument that sounded a lot like Sun Ra. And not only that, they had real difficulties to warm up the audience. There had been quite some boos and hisses, and the reaction of the audience changed when a solid drum beat came in. So even with Kraftwerk is complicated, and Kraftwerk today, even if you only listen to Kraftwerk, you wonder which changes they underwent. From this very friendly picture where they sit in a train on their way to Paris to look for not so cheap shoes. You have to see it on the with the historic background in mind. This was 40 years, 50 years after Germans not came to Paris to to be nice and buy shoes. And the last concert I've seen, only on excerpts on this Germanness of Kraftwerk today comes very dark and menacing. So what has happened?
Well, Wolfgang Seidel, it's an absolute pleasure to speak to you today. It's interesting you don't really like krautrock because your new book is called Krautrock Eruption, an introduction to German electronic music, 1970 to 80. You yourself are a drummer. You co-founded, the rock group Tonsteiner Scherben. And you joined Eruption, which was a group founded by Conrad Schnitzler, ex Tangerine Dream, and then of Kluster. But before that, if we might, I wondered if you could tell us a bit about yourself and your background with music. It says in the book you were born in 1949 in a backyard in West Berlin, right?
Not far away from where I'm now sitting. Yeah, it is a working class district. Describing the book as a book on krautrock is partly misleading because there are no band biographies or so in it. It's more or less as a social background, which from which this music came.
So, when did you start playing the drums?
When I was 16, so 60 years ago.
Wow. And so you co-founded the rock group Tonsteiner Scherben, who got really big in Germany, right?
Yes, and now they're put into that krautrock basket. But the truth is, in past years, nobody regarded them as being krautrock. And if so, I have to say it was the most British or the most American bands of the krautrock universe, because they had been fans of pretty things, small faces. And the only difference is that it was quite clear covering British music doesn't take you anywhere. Okay, you can play at parties or so in the local pub. So the idea was, this sounds, why was this worth a discussion? The idea was to have German lyrics. Mm-hmm. And this was quite successful. But so it's only in recent years that the name Tonsteiner Scherben, or the short version Scherben, appears in lists of krautrock groups.
So you'd say that's wrong? They're not a krautrock group?
It depends on what criteria you have. This is a little bit complicated because when I read the British press or articles or a book like David Stubbs, they're always in search of some Germanness in krautrock. But the truth is, krautrock was the way out of any kind of Germanness. So, okay, in the last years there had been some musicians from that krautrock era, and younger musicians who, for whatever reason, jumped that wagon and declared, with Kraftwerk there came a strange twist but this Kraftwerk Germanness is a fake Germanness, but that you might wish that it had been that way.
I want to talk about the name Krautrock, because it was a name imposed by British journalists in the 70s, I believe. It's a name that stuck. It's not a very nice name. I mean, people, well, in my opinion, I don't think it's a very nice name. I think people use it affectionately. Other people have been talking about Kosmischer. Well, what do you think of the name?
I have to get used to it. I always saw it as a little something with humor and not as a negative sticker.
Okay. Do you like the name Kosmischer as well?
Not so much because, okay, it depends on, it's often used without too much of kind of program behind it. But when it comes to that, it's often goes into this esoteric New Age ideology, where I have some criticism. I prefer music for people who live on Earth.
So after Ton Steinet Scheren, you joined Eruption, as I said, which is a group formed by Conrad Schnitzler. How did you join the band?
It's hard. You cannot see it as a band. It was a group of people around Conrad Schnitzler as the mastermind. He had studied with Joseph Beuys, and what he took from Joseph Beuys was this idea: everybody is an artist. Okay, Joseph Beuys told us everybody is an artist, but he himself insisted that he is a professor and gets some money. So, ideology is often very contradictory. Conrad had kind of open house. Who came by, played with him. It's a little bit similar, like you had it with the first incarnation of Amandül.
Because I've seen it called a performance concept rather than a band. Is that right?
This is right, yes. So everybody from that Berlin scene of the years 19th, I don't know, when Conrad started with that. He started with something similar in the venue he had opened with Hans-Joachim Rodelius of Kluster, then there had been Kluster with a K in the beginning. And when the Zodiac Free Arts Lab, where's the journalist? The idea of Free Arts Lab, the idea Conrad brought from his visits in England.
Because no, go on, please.
Yeah. There was a break, and then he had found a new space for using as a studio, as a rehearsal place. There had been some musicians from Amandül. They had split from the Munich band. Tangerine Dream. In those days, Tangerine Dream had been copycats of the Cream. Rock trio. So nothing electronic about them.
Because I was going to ask, like, what is the best way to hear Eruption these days? Is there? I mean, a few records, I believe, live recordings have come out latterly. Is there one? We can't go and see you, unfortunately. Is there one record you would recommend?
No, there are only 2 tapes that survived. When I was researching for a book on Tonsteine Scherben, I visited Klaus Freudichmann, who was sound engineer with very simple equipment for the first Tangerine Dream recordings. not Kluster, and the first Tonsteine Scherben recordings. And I was in search of if he has tapes from Tonsteine Scherben rehearsing. Yes, he had. And among those tapes, there had been 2 tapes because Klaus Freudigmann also joined Eruption. And there had been 2 tapes that surfaced. A lot of this was just noise or people talking, walking around, and a little bit of music. And Cubico, an Italian label, released this in different packages.
Okay.
So, yeah, Cubico is something very special. So that's all, and I have no idea if these records Cubico made are still available.
Okay, I just saw them on Discogs, but yeah, I don't know how widely available they are.
Yeah, my only social media activity is a YouTube channel. And there you can hear excerpts from these tapes.
Right.
I can send you the link so you get an impression. But the music was depending on who was there for a certain session. Sometimes pure amateurish noise and sometimes very interested. But yeah, here we come. Sorry?
I was going to say, how do you feel about the fact that very few recordings exist? Are you sad about that, or is it kind of quite good in a way? It's like, you had to be there, you had to experience it, and if you were...
Yeah, I learned a lot from these sessions. When you come from a rock group, as a drummer, you are used to have a constant beat that you can play without listening to the others. Okay, this is not. And I had to learn to much more to listen to what other people are doing in the group than with rock drumming. And yeah, this for me, making music is a social activity. And friend of mine coined a word for this kind of music, herrschaftsfreie Musik. This means it's how to translate it. Music without hierarchy, perhaps, is a possible translation. And I have found a documentary about a concert of Karl-Heinz Stockhausen in West Berlin. We do not have to forget that when we talk about Kraftwerk, we always talk about West Germany.
Yeah.
A concert of Karl-Heinz Stockhausen in West Berlin with artist talk in between the pieces that were presented. And there was one piece where this guy who made this artist talk asked Stockhausen that he had the impression that the musicians decide when the next comes in with his part. So the direction of the piece, this is what was his impression, is decided by the musicians while playing. And Stockhausen said yes. And then he continued saying, we live in a country where we had the experience of one man saying which direction things have to go. And at that moment, you hear a rumble and a noise in the audience, because 1961, everybody in that audience knew what was meant.
This is interesting. Maybe this gets into what Krautrock is. I mean, what is Krautrock for you at its base?
In the beginning, it was the opposite of finding some national culture. BBC had a documentary a few years ago entitled it "The Rebirth of Germany."
Mm-hmm.
What? Because Rebirth of Germany is a slogan from the far right that goes back to the Napoleonic Wars. So for young people, especially for when people talk about this, the time 1968, there is this 1968 rebellion, student rebellion, even the word student revolution, which is funny. It's the first revolution where the ruling class is the same at the end of the revolution as of the beginning. So most of what you can hear or read is about students, academia, but in the German educational system, only at that time, has changed now completely, only 10% of the young that left school had the qualification to go on to university. The rest had normal jobs. The first step was an apprenticeship for becoming a bricklayer, a tailor. So, society was divided in upper and lower class, well, no surprise, and culture too. There is this German idea of high culture and low culture, which is reflected, for example, in the copyright laws.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a difference if, as a musician, as a composer, you are registered as ernste Musik, serious music, or Unterhaltungsmusik, entertainment music. And with this, if you are seen as a serious composer, you get much more royalties than when you're only making cheap entertainment. That is something the upper classes look down. And this insisting in high culture was a legitimation of the rule of the upper classes. It's also a thing that goes back to the 19th century, when a movement, Germany is made out of very different nations. Bavaria and Lower Saxony are quite different from their history. So this, before there had been a unified German state in 1870, there was this movement creating a uniform culture for all these very different parts that made up Germany. And this is why there is no German Volksmusik.
Yeah.
So the translation is wrong. It seems like folk music in English, but it's completely artificial.
So what? So that thing you said about the difference between the copyrights, upper and lower classes, two types of music, I presume that was in the past. It's not like that anymore.
It's still as out. I don't know. I'm registered as a composer for entertainment and but I have released so few music and I've never cared about it.
That's amazing. Okay, so what was the first German band you heard that it might be a band we think of as Krautrock, it might not be, that you thought, wow, this is really something different?
it was in Conrad's and Hans-Joachim Rodelius' Zodiac Free Arts Lab. There had been a very diverse program. Some of the bands that played there, they played blues rock, and there had been a large portion of free jazz musicians. And free jazz, and with free jazz, we always think of the furor of Peter Brötzmann. He played there too, but more interesting had been those free jazz groups that somehow crossed the border, had their John Cage in mind, making music, creating sounds with everything available. This gave me an idea that there is something else as this clearly division of labor you have in a rock group. And the idea of music as social activity, because with this kind of music, listening while playing is more important than actual playing.
Yeah. So your book is billed as an alternative history of German underground in the 60s and 70s. Why an alternative? Is it because like the story normally told isn't right?
No. So alternative history is perhaps a little bit misleading. It's more that I remember that the music was part of a larger movement in society. It is like it is those people who went to university in the 1960s became the journalists and the professors, and they mainly came from the upper classes, so they tell the story from their perspective. That doesn't mean that it is wrong what they tell you, but there is a lot of missing, and these are the voices of young people that, now are pensionists like me, led a normal life, and while the offspring of the upper class still listen to classical music, it had been the young ones that embraced rock and roll from the States and then the British invasion. Mm-hmm. I remember a newspaper article from 1956 that I found when I did the research for the book. It was an article about a concert of Bill Haley on his first German tour that ended in a riot.
Yeah.
And the people that rioted there and had got arrested were all workers. Mm-hmm. There was only one person in that bunch that had a higher education. This famous Star Club, this place where this, always forgot the name, this band from Liverpool.
Hard to remember.
Where they played, the audience was mostly sailors, tough guys, people from the working class, and there had been some adventurous art students that dared to enter this place. And what is this? The rest is history.
Yeah. I wonder, are you a nostalgic person in general?
Not so much. I have no, because no need to. Berlin, when I it sounds a little bit like nostalgia when I speak about the scene in the Zodiac and the music and this concept of Herrschaftsfreie Musik, free music. But Berlin has become kind of a center of music that follows the same ideas, and that without so many people in that scene that know about this roots, doesn't matter. So on every day of the week, you can go out into some little venue where they play, surprising, always new music. Because, and the scene is made up from people who had been disappointed by studying music. When today you study music, you practice a lot of contemporary composers. And when you have finished your study, you end up in an orchestra that never would play a composer who hasn't died 200 years ago. So they started an initiative to organize concerts themselves. There are different factions in that scene, but there is no clear border in between. You have a new music trained cello player together on stage with someone from the noise camp. So it never gets boring.
Do you have, though, what are your dearest memories of the sort of late 60s, 70s musically?
I just denied anything like nostalgia. But when you ask for such memory, and you cannot escape the nostalgia. But I remember a concert when Tonsteine Scherben even haven't got that name, because the band started as musicians in a street theater made up by young workers. Mm-hmm. An interesting concept. That it's very strange. There is this anti-Americanism of the left, but the good ideas mostly came from the US. In the US, they had that bread and puppet theater that performed in the streets, and this was a blueprint for the theater group the Scherben came from. Mm-hmm. And this meant that the actors had large masks that they wear from, what is the word for papier-mâché? Cardboard. And the idea, and they played everyday scenes from perhaps being an apprentice in a company, and you are badly paid, and then the boss comes and orders you to work overtime without any payment. And this is the moment the play stopped. And the audience was asked how to continue. What can they do against that? Well, not very well. And in the beginning, the band played to attract the audience. And I remember we played in Cologne in a room where there had been, before the band and the theater started, a batik workshop. And these colorful these colorful textiles had been hung around the wall for drying. And as it was in the 60s, the musicians had been completely stoned in this room full of color.
Beautiful.
Quite an experience.
Where do you see the influence of krautrock today?
Yeah, I told you already about this Berlin scene. This goes under the name of Echtzeitmusik, real-time music, because when some people from that scene set up a little calendar in the internet where you can see who is playing where and when, they had to find a name for it. And had a long discussion. Are we jazz? No. Are we new music? No. Are we free jazz? No. This has a long tradition, and we are far beyond that. And then came someone with the idea, oh, what we do is composing in real time.
Yeah.
And Echtzeitmusik is a German translation.
Echtzeitmusik.
Yeah.
Ah.
Real time music.
What is the book comes accompanied with an excellent compilation. Did you have a role in that compilation?
No, because it's a little bit difficult. To be honest, I'm not sure if this is good. When you write a book or an article, you can criticize things.
Yeah.
When you have a record you want to sell, you cannot say, okay, this piece of music, I have some criticism.
But buy it and listen to it now.
It's a little bit contradictory. So I said, okay, it's a good idea to have some examples to listen to, but I myself will not be the one who decides what is on that record and not. And it even gets more complicated because it isn't so easy that you say, I want to have this piece on that compilation because I think this is a good example. And then you hear, oh, we do not have the rights to. You get in all these troubles about royalties, copyrights. So I'm happy that I didn't have to care about that.
But what is the one record that you would recommend people listen to? A krautrock record, if we like. What is the one thing?
What I really like is Ken's Tagomago. And Ken is one of the few groups who managed to not only have one record that's worth listening, but the next one until Future Days, I think, are different, but all of high quality, really interesting music. Okay, generally, no band can. There's always a time when the creative output becomes a little bit lower, or bands started copying themselves. This is nothing special to the krautrock bands. It's that way. Kluster, the first record when Conrad Schnitzler had left, and because they had a discussion about the name to whom it belongs, Dieter Möbius and Hans-Joachim Rodelius changed Kluster into Kluster with a C in the beginning. This is, not easy listening, but it's great.
Going back to Kraftwerk briefly, you say in the book, this is a quote, Kraftwerk remains the German band that is most frequently mentioned when today's musicians refer to krautrock. Is that a mistake?
As far as I know, they are the only German group that has kind of international success.
But do you...
Can perhaps too, but Kraftwerk. But they are quite unique. So as Gesamtkunstwerk, they're really great, but it's not the typical krautrock musician lived in a commune with his fellow musicians, and smoked a lot of pot and sometimes made music. That's not so bad. They had some very interesting ideas if it comes to politics, they all had in the late 60s, early 70s, saw themselves as leaning to the political left.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes with some misunderstandings, but a result of this was the idea of living together. And one idea that was somehow groundbreaking was founding an independent label. So the Scherben had been the first who produced their records themselves.
Yeah.
Not only that they organized the production, very funny, for days and days, the members of the band and their friends were holding the record covers. They also took care of distribution with quite some success. In those days, nearly every city, especially those who had a university, had a left-leaning bookshop.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that worked out very well was to contact these bookshops. So they had a network for distributing the records. And on the way to delivering these records, they stopped at every shop that sold records. In those days, you do not have specialized record shops. It was mostly a shop where you could buy a radio, a refrigerator, and a record. This worked very well, so they set up a network together with other bands, Embryo, Mrs. Beastly, Checkpoint Charlie, forgot all the rest. And for 10 years, it was a very successful idea. The background was first, the profit for the musicians was bigger. They had not to divide the incoming money with lawyers, companies. They did everything themselves, cover design and so they didn't have to pay for that extra.
Mm-hmm.
And the second idea was that producing your records yourself, you do not have to discuss with anyone from a record company the content, for example, of the lyrics or the sometimes a little bit strange cover designs. And this was the first independent label that existed in Germany. And that after 10 years, it went out of business. Wasn't the end to that idea, because this was a time of Neue Deutsche Welle, the German answer to punk, where a lot of labels sprang up that carried on this idea.
Because I think in the book you talk about Kraftwerk's friendly Keynesian capitalism,
Yeah.
which is a nice turn of phrase, but is that a criticism maybe?
No, not at all. This is a period of Kraftwerk I really like.
Good.
And I find it more rooted in how the society had evolved from this authoritarian ideology that had a strong grip on German society until the mid of the 60s, to this new Germany, the hedonistic, but not, very friendly, nice. On the other hand, you can wonder other krautrock groups, the opposite. I remember posters for concerts in West Berlin with Agitation Free, where the band had been drawn as comic figures, smoking enormous joints and pointing with machine guns and slogans like Frei sein, high sein, Terror muss dabei sein. Oops, yeah, when I translate it, it will not rhyme. Be free, be high, terror comes with it. So this was around 1968. A few years later, the terror was...
Thank you so much for taking the time, and have a lovely day. Bye then.
Bye.